Let me get it. What's going on, beautiful people of excellence? Thank you so much for tuning into this video. I am Carrington Brown, your relationship expert. And today we're going to have a conversation about a fun topic, right? That topic is submission. All right. So yesterday I posted a reel on my Instagram. And no, 2 days ago, I believe it will be, posted a reel on my Instagram, and it was talking about submission and toxic independence. And a young lady jumped on, commented, and asked a question. And so what I wanted to do is I just wanted to jump on real quick and give a response to her question. And so her question was very simple. She said, can I touch on what biblical submission looks like? And then what is the difference between a guy that wants a biblical relationship where he is the head of the household versus being a controlling individual? So let's start with the first part, right? The first part says, what does biblical submission look like? Great question. So when we look at the concept of submission, I feel that a great piece of the Bible to go to is Ephesians 5, right? Ephesians 5 gives us the blueprint for building and creating a Christian household. And the first thing that it says is that reciprocal submission or mutual submission glorifies God. So first thing is this, from a biblical perspective, submission is supposed to be mutual in a marriage, right? When we look at doing marriage God's way, there's a responsibility of not only that woman submitting, but also a responsibility of that man submitting. And so when I'm doing wedding vows with couples, or I'm doing premarital counseling with couples, I always let the man know, hey, it's your responsibility to lead in the area of submission. And the reason why is because you're a leader. Therefore, because you're the leader of the relationship, you're supposed to provide an example to your wife of what it looks like to properly submit, especially if she's never been exposed to a proper answer. Therefore, as a man, you're supposed to submit first, but not submit to your wife first. You're supposed to submit to God first. And as a result of you submitting to God as the husband and reaping and bearing the fruit of submission in your life, what's going to happen is that's going to inspire your wife to be willing and open and confident submitting to you. So the first thing when we look at biblical submission is that it's supposed to be reciprocal in a relationship. Therefore, as the man leads his submission through submitting to God, it's going to teach, train, and educate that woman, his wife, on what it looks like for her to submit to him, right? And God, right? She got to submit to both of them. Next thing is this. Submission, I've been given a couple definitions of submission. One that I really like is that submission is you putting yourself underneath or behind the mission, right? When there's a mission put in place, you put yourself underneath or behind that mission. That's what submission looks like. Therefore, when we look at biblical submission, it looks like you saying, my desires, my wants, and my needs go after or behind the mission, wants, and needs of the mission of God. So from a marital perspective, and this is why it's so important to have vision and to be in alignment with God in your marriage, because God gives marriage missions. God gives marriages mantles and responsibilities and duties to accomplish. And so the reason why it's so valuable for you to be clear on the mission for your marriage is because in order for my marriage to reflect God, reciprocal submission has to be present. But in order for us to submit, then we have to have clarity about what we're supposed to be submitting to individually and as a partnership. And so when we look at submission in marriage, a big piece of that is being in alignment and clear about the vision and the mission for the marriage. Because if you're clear on the vision for marriage, if you're clear on the mission for marriage, then both of you guys have an understanding about what it is I need to put myself underneath or behind. Therefore, I have understanding and clarity about the sacrifices that I need to make in order to put myself underneath or behind that mission, right? Last thing is this. The second part of your question was, this individual's question was, what is the difference between a guy that wants a biblical relationship where he is the head of the household versus controlling? That's an awesome question. And I kind of answered that question with the second thing that I said regarding, the first thing I said regarding reciprocal submission, which means that the way that you know a man desires a God-glorifying biblical marriage is that he's willing to submit to God. Right? If that man is willing to submit to God, and not even just willing, if that man is intentionally taking steps on a daily, consistent basis to submit to God, you can tell by his fruit, his life, and his lifestyle that, hey, this man is submitting, right? This man is doing submission, right? Therefore, hey, I believe that he wants to do this thing right. But another thing is this. When we look at the role of a husband, right? And I was teaching Vacation Bible School on marriage last week. You feel me? So it's fresh on me. But the role of the husband in a marriage and in his household is headship. And the primary divine responsibility of a man in the position of headship of his home and of his family is to be a servant leader. Right? The primary role of a man is not to dictate in a marriage. The primary role of a man is not to give direction in a marriage. That's not the primary role of a husband. The divinely ordained responsibility of a husband in marriage is to be a servant leader, which means that as a husband, it's our responsibilities to max out service in our marriage. A way that you know whether or not a man wants a biblical, God glorifying marriage is his willingness to max out his capacity to serve you. Because if a man is not intentional about serving you and being sacrificial and giving to himself and giving to the marriage even beyond what he believes he has the capacity and potential to do, if he's not doing that, then he's not in full pursuit of God and what God has called and ordained him to do. Because his headship, it's his primary role and responsibility to be a servant leader in the marriage. And if that man is unwilling to serve you beyond his comfort, listen, serve you beyond his comfort, then there are some question marks about whether or not, hey, he really wants to build this biblical marriage, this God-glorifying household, rather than he may just be wanting to control me, right? So that's my response. When we look at submission, it's a beautiful thing. It's a blessed thing when we're educated and trained on how to do it properly, all right? Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. I hope it served you. If you know somebody that needs to hear this, go and click that share button, send it their way. Like, comment, subscribe. If you don't already, follow me on all social media platforms. I'm at TheCarringtonBrown. And yo, if you having some trouble submitting in your relationship, King, if you having some trouble serving better in your relationship, click the link in the description box below. Schedule a free call with your boy, and let's make sure we get you healed, healthy, whole, proper perspective, so that when you are married or as you grow into your marriage, you can be the version of yourself that you need to be to build, create, and cultivate a marriage that glorifies God, all right? Thank you so much once again for tuning in. I love y'all so much. Holla at y'all in a little bit. Peace out. Cool. All right, y'all. So, yeah, I just want to do that while